This is a Film Stories original podcast.
Love this podcast? Support this show through the Acast supporter feature. It's up to you how much you give, and there's no regular commitment. Just hit the link in the show description to support now.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. You chose to hit play on this podcast today. Smart choice. Make another smart choice with Auto Quote Explorer to compare rates from multiple car insurance companies all at once. Try it at progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. At Mint Mobile, we like to do the opposite of what Big Wireless does. They charge you a lot. We charge you a little. So naturally, when they announced they'd be raising their prices due to inflation, we decided to deflate our prices due to not hating you. That's right. We're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See detail.
Need a holiday gift that will keep her sparkling all year long? Blue Nile, the original online jeweler, has experts on hand 24/7 who can help you find the perfect piece. Beyond that, Blue Nile makes the gifting experience easier than ever, with guaranteed free shipping and returns, as well as a wide assortment of jewelry of the highest quality at the best price. Right now, get 30% off jewelry at BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com for 30% off. BlueNile.com.
This is Writers on Film, the only podcast dedicated to books on cinema. Okay, today I'm going to be doing something a little bit special. This is a bonus episode which I'm going to drop in the middle of the week sometime, probably after the weekend. This is specifically for No Time to Die, the new James Bond film, and I have had a conversation with the author and editor of the James Bond Archives, published by Taschen, which will be available from the middle of October, Paul Duncan. Paul is a James Bond expert, as you will hear, and he has worked on the James Bond archives for, I think, well, it must be clocking on for 10 years, I think. This is a new edition that's coming out to coincide with the film's release. He has been on set many times and he has interviewed all the principals, and he has had exclusive access to all the archives. So really, we couldn't talk to anyone more qualified to put the film in context and to reveal some interesting tidbits of information. So I hope you enjoy the conversation. If you wish, you can follow me on Twitter at Dr. Jonty, DRJONTY, and after the conversation, if you still have time and patience, I will give my own sort of review of the film, a spoiler-filled review of the film if you've seen it, to give, well, my own take, not really a review, but there you go, my own take. Thank you very much and enjoy the conversation.
What do you call it? On the way to the premiere, I go down, I pick up the tickets, I go down, I'm on Bond Street, and I go past Aston Martin, and then just after that, my shoes start to fall apart before I get to the premiere. Literally disintegrating. So I'm on the red carpet with the soles of my feet starting flip-flopping. They're called Road. They're German-made, but I think they should rename them to E-Road. And then after the film, I have to walk to the underground, and it's pouring as rain, and the shoes just completely fall apart.
Oh,
and I'm going in, soles falling off. Yeah, so on the underground and on the drive back home, I'm doing it virtually barefoot.
Oh, blimey!
So,
that, of all the things that you would think on your way to a James Bond premiere.
I was telling my shoes, this is no time to die. You know?
I'm trying to think of some really good shoe puns now.
We were in tears of laughter. Me crying also, you know. But it was because it's the complete absurdity of dressing up, in black tie, etc. and then this happening. It's just like crazy.
I'm going to go and see the film this evening, so without too many spoilers, what's your sort of capsule review?
Well, I think that it's visually stunning. It's made by an auteur, so the sensibilities are a bit different, more human. So it's about the character, if you like, what happens to a character, it's sort of like an action John le Carré, because it's about the idea of what happens to a character who spends his life distrusting everybody, including the woman he loves. And of course, you can't have a relationship with anybody if you distrust them. So this is, if you like, the tension of and the tragedy of that type of character.
I'm really looking forward to it. I'm going to go and see it in Italian tonight, and then on Monday they have a English language version, original language version. I'm going to go and see it again, I think, in English.
Yeah, what do you call it? It is. There are one-liners in it, and there's tons and tons of action in it. So there are different tones and intents throughout So each action scene has a different intent and a different tone. The difference in tone. So I thought I was lucky enough to be on set several times. I was at Pinewood multiple times during the production. So I was able to see the development of the script and the story over it. And it just got better and better as it got through. So.
But tell me something about that, because I'd heard rumours had gone around on the internet, but I've also talked to people who were on the set and things, and they were saying, and I got an impression that this was a troubled production. There was injuries, and there was obviously the change of director was a pretty big, high-profile story for a while. Did you get any sense of that, or how were your feelings?
The thing is that if you go onto any film set where there's so much at stake, where so much is being trying to be done in such a short period of time, then things go wrong and things happen. If you like, it's the job of the producers, the director, and the heads of department to solve all those problems and to keep moving forward, with everybody trying to do the best that they can for the film. And that's the same on smaller films as well as big films. And it creates an amazing amount of pressure on everybody. And it's just a natural part of making these type of movies. Most stuntmen, right, if they're making an action movie, they start off okay. And then as they go through it, there's more and more bruises, more and more padding. And this psychologically is what happens on these movies. Not just Bond movies, all big blockbuster movies. So it's just that Bond gets a lot more media attention. So I just think it's a natural process of making these movies. And it's something that, you've got to understand that everybody working on it is a person. They're going to say and do things in the heat of the moment, right? That's not intended to harm or insult or whatever. It's just a result of the amount of pressure people are put under. That happens in every situation of any high pressure job. If you like, the goalposts keep changing as you do it, as you find out. It's like if you've never done, when you're writing a story or when you're doing a painting or a sculpture or anything where or building a piece of furniture, as you're making it, you're going to, the more you do it, the more you know about it, and that you understand, those marks that I made earlier on, that thing I did earlier, wasn't the right thing. I need to adjust because now I know more than I did when I started this, because I understand what it is I'm trying to do. And so you make changes and adjustments. So those are, if you like, from an artistic point of view, that you can do those things. And that's just a natural process. And one of the, I was talking to the heads of departments, I interviewed them for the book. And one of the things that Peter Tilsley, I think, the production designer, and he said, "Oh, we've got to do a design for the end, and we've got to do something for Bond to do at the end." And Cary Fukunaga, the director and co-writer, he said, Bond at the end, Bond can't be just switching, switches, up and down. Right. He's got to be physically doing something. And so Peter came up with this device, this like cog device, pulleys and stuff that he has to actually physically do something. So he's, and he literally, while I was there, he's like doing doodles, on a sheet of paper, and show me, I'm thinking about doing it like this or like that. Now, this is well into the production. They've decided to add or elaborate on this, and there's a particular vision of it, and there's an understanding of the psychology of Bond. And a lot of this comes out of the fact that at the end of a very long shooting day, Cary, the producers, Barbara, Michael, and Greg Wilson, and Daniel Craig would all get together and have a script meeting at the end of each day in order to discuss the character, the story, and to improve it so that they would have notes for the following day and for the future. So this was an ongoing process. It wasn't one person against another. It's a group of people working together under extreme high pressure. So they will make changes, and that then ripples down through all the departments, because obviously they then have to think on their feet and find ways to get these things done.
Do you think that would that have been typical for every Bond movie, or do you feel that there was a particular attention being paid to this one because it was Daniel Craig's last, and perhaps the response to Spectre had been a bit less what they had wanted?
No, it's the same on every Bond movie. You go back to From Russia with Love, and they're filming in Istanbul, and they're going up and down, and they plan to do a lot of the scenes in the countryside, like the boat chase at the end, and the helicopter chase, etc. And they ran out of boats. They couldn't get the boats. Literally, they couldn't get the boats. So they had to cut that short, decide to give up on it, right? And then they went back to the UK. Very sadly, Pedro Armandias, while they were in Istanbul, found out that he had cancer, terminal cancer, and so they rearranged all the filming. I mean, Pedro wanted to finish the film, right, and to finish his role. I mean, it was an incredibly moving thing to do. And so when they got back to the UK, they completely changed all of the schedule so that all of his scenes would be done first as soon as they got back, so that then he could go back to Mexico, where he sadly passed away. But that was a complete change because of that, but also because they couldn't complete physically, they couldn't do what they needed to do in Turkey. They then did a ton of filming in Scotland for the chase, for the boat chase, and also for the helicopter scene, etc. So this is consistently, if there is an issue on the Bond movies, then they have to find a solution. I mean, there was famously on which one was it? I think it's Tomorrow is Another Day. They did
Tomorrow Never Dies, maybe.
Tomorrow Never Dies. Yeah, I'm thinking of multiple films.
You're thinking of Die Another Day and Tomorrow Never Dies.
Yeah, Tomorrow. Yeah, this was the film between the two. Yeah, Tomorrow Never Dies, and they shipped off. Literally, they put a ton of Chris Corbould had filled containers full of equipment to go off to film in Vietnam. And then it was on the ship. It was off there. And in the end, they couldn't do it. They had the filming license revoked,
right,
while the ship was on the water. So they had to go to Thailand instead. They had to find another place for the boat to go. and to film and to get permission. I mean, these things happen, and one of the great things about the producers and the crew is that they roll with these punches and they find solutions and they get it done. So, all these, everything's going wrong, everything always goes wrong. That's the default.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the default.
I wonder if they ever were tempted to say, let's just do like the film equivalent of a bottle episode. Let's just do a Bond in England and
But that would never sell. You know that's not the that's not the USP sales point of the franchise. Bond needs to go on location. He needs to be in multiple countries. He needs to be dressed to the gills, right? He needs to have gadgets. He needs to have action. He needs to have beautiful people around him, and he needs to have evil people around him, and beautiful evil people. So. And everybody has to be in danger. So that has to happen. It's the mixtures of that. It's the rearranging of all those elements in each of the movies that makes the movies as successful as they are.
What's your own relationship with Bond, Paul? When did you what was the first Bond film you saw at the cinema?
It was a double bill, Thunderball and On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Oh, wow.
My dad took me to see them. And then they're long movies. They're both actually, for a child, they're both very long movies, but they were great. Then obviously seeing them on television. They used to be on television in the UK, Christmas and Easter, I think. But it would always be a special occasion on a Sunday night, right? And it was a big, big deal that James Bond was on television as a kid. And then the first Bond that I saw on my own was The Spy Loved Me, right. 1977. And I remember we were on holiday in Cornwall, and I went to literally, it's a bright sunny day, and I say to my parents, look, The Spy Loved Me is on. He's got this great car that goes underwater. I need to see this movie.
Right.
Essentially, in my mind, right? I mean, at that time, I had no idea about who had made the movies or anything like that. It was just a movie. I had no idea how movies were made. But in my mind, I was thinking, this is like Thunderbirds, Joe 90 and Captain Scarlet, with all these cool vehicles and sinking buildings, buildings that go underground and all this, everything, all these secret places. And in my mind, that's what James Bond was part of that. And little did I know that Derek Meddings, did, the special effects and models and stuff for both, So that was, so it was on this beautiful day. My parents dropped me off at the cinema so that I could go and see this, go into the dark, and see The Spy Loved Me, and that was.
So do you have a favourite Bond?
Well, it's a bit like saying, do you have a favourite Doctor Who?
Right.
That you come to accept at a certain point that each of them is a different character.
Yes.
And so they bring a different thing to it. So I don't really have a favourite Bond, but I do think that there are certain moments or certain bits and pieces of Bond that are much better than other parts. So they're either better directed or a better story, etc. So it really comes down to that. So now you want me to tell you which of the films I like, etc. And
yeah,
all this, yeah. Okay.
Obviously, I'm not going to let you get away with that.
You're just turning me into a listicle. That's what you're doing.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, okay.
We'll headline the podcast. Paul Duncan's 10. Yeah.
10 listicles. Yeah, but don't join the words together. Yeah.
Right.
All right. Yeah. So Sean Connery from Russia with Love.
Yes.
All right. As always, the thing is that when I was doing the book, I was very aware. The James Bond archives. I was very aware that the films were a lot of them are very much the same. because really on Goldfinger was the first film when they were making it where they changed the story significantly from Fleming's originals. So, and what they did was they discovered, if you like, the template for James Bond as a film character. They found the template with Goldfinger, and they followed that template pretty closely through many years. So you would have the good Bond girl and the bad Bond girl. You had the villain. You had the lair. You had all sorts of. You had the gadgets. You had a lot of things. The DB5, the car chase, all the different elements really came together with Goldfinger, and it was like and also with the tone of the script. They found everything with that, but on From Russia with Love, it's a completely different story because it's set up as a suspense thriller. Essentially, Bond is walking into a trap. We know this because we are given other information to show that essentially Spectre are setting up this trap for Bond. And so we see it step by step, Bond getting closer and closer into the jaws of Red Grant and Spectre. And so, if you like, the filming dynamic and the style of the filming is set up like a Hitchcock movie, where you know that the bomb is going to go off, but you don't know when, and you're waiting for that moment. So it creates a sense of suspense. And I've always liked that movie, even before I've thought about it in those terms. Yeah, so that's always been one of my favorites. Also, I've always loved You Only Live Twice.
Right. Roald Dahl scripted as well.
In fact, that's something else that they'd started doing at that point as well, which was they would always have two sets of writers. This is actually from the very beginning, in fact, Dr. No. You always have two sets of writers. And one set of writers, generally, they would construct the story and they would, who the villain was and, if you like, the locations and action points and things like this. If you like, they set up the structure of the movie and then the producers could go out and plan for that and get locations and set everything up with the stunts and production design and all the different elements that you need in casting. And then you will have another writer or writers to come in who will polish the script and will polish the dialogue in order to give it a bit of a sparkle. So, for instance, on Goldfinger, I think it was Paul Duncan, who was actually an ex-agent himself and used to train the agent. So he's the guy who used to train, Christopher Lee, for example, who was an SOE agent. So all relating back to Fleming's original, Ian Fleming's original career during the war as a trainer of agents, secret agents. So,
which is also the subject of a new film. I think Operation Mincemeat features Ian Fleming, in his role in the real life sort of spy story that he recounts.
Yeah, several people have tried to redo, both in film and in novels as well as non-fiction, in order to reconstruct these times. So, it's a fascinating period. And in fact, when I was doing the book, I was talking to Hilary and Stephen Saltzman, the children of Harry Saltzman, one of the original producers on the movies. It was Harry Saltzman and Cubby Broccoli, and they said that they discovered papers that seemed to indicate that Harry may have been an agent during the war. That certainly some of the things that he was doing seemed to be like cover roles for the CIA.
Wow.
Or it would have been OSS during the World War II, but there was nothing was proved, but they were showing me all these documents, and unfortunately, they weren't quite conclusive enough to say that he was an agent, but they seemed to indicate that he was part of that world, if you like. Yeah. So, and in fact, Ian Fleming sold the rights for the film and television to Harry Saltzman, but Harry Saltzman couldn't get the backing in the film world, even though he'd worked on TV shows like with Buster Crabbe as a foreign legionnaire. There was Captain Gallant or something like that it's called, and he'd done other things. He couldn't find the backing for if you like, to do a Bond series, a Bond movie. And luckily enough, a friend of his, Wolf Mankiewicz, a writer, had said, well, Wolf's friend, Cubby Broccoli, has been looking to buy the rights for a long time. Yeah, and had actually missed out on getting the rights years earlier. And then that's the point that the two of them were introduced. And as soon as Cubby, with his connections to United Artists and to Hollywood, because Cubby was a Hollywood producer, right? He had Hollywood connections, but he'd been working in the UK doing UK productions as Warwick Films. And basically, the two of them together then went off and got the deal, I think, within an hour from United Artists to go ahead and make a Bond movie. Wow. So these connections, I always wondered whether Fleming allowed Harry to have those rights because of that connection. There's nothing proved, but it's intriguing.
Just thinking about, so you'd mentioned You Only Live Twice as another Connery Bond that you
because it's just bonkers. Let's face it. I mean, Bond. It's basically Bond in space, and it was everything that a kid would want. Imagine a hideout in a volcano. Exactly, I mean, it's like. And it's got these Japanese twists and gadgets picking up a car with a giant magnet, and then dropping it into the sea. I mean, it was just such good fun. Yeah. So always, the thing is that each of the films have certain elements that are great. On Her Majesty's Secret Service, such an unexpectedly emotional movie, and also the music, John Barry's music in that is just superb. It's just like the performances in it seem real. Diana Rigg is just great in it. So you really feel you feel as though it's another type of movie. You're seeing a different element to James Bond. I mean, at this point, as a kid, I didn't read the books, so I had no inkling of what the books were like in relation to the movies. So this was a surprise to me. And in fact, while doing research on the Archives book, I found out that the script from On Her Majesty's Secret Service had actually been written originally for Sean Connery. And then at the last minute, they decided to do, I think it's You Only Live Twice, in Japan.
Of course, yeah.
And it was, it was like, or it could have been an earlier one. I forget the exact details. It's in the book anyway. Yeah, so I thought that was interesting because Sean Connery doesn't really get to show much emotion in his character. There's only the point in Thunderball, I remember, where he has to tell one of the characters that her brother was dead, right? And before he does it, he puts on his sunglasses so that she can't see his eyes.
Ah, yeah, that's a nice moment.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I thought, right, he's hiding something, because always the character has to hide his true feelings or his what's going on underneath. He has to put an armor on. That's part of the idea of getting the license to kill, is that you have to find a way to disassociate yourself from the killing and from the guilt, etc., of the actions that you do. as do many soldiers. So, and I think that's one of the things that, if you like, that was one of the great things about Casino Royale, which I think is probably the best Bond of all, because you get that vulnerability of the character built into the story. That this is a guy who you get the feeling that he's a bit rough around the edges, and Vesper Lynd is, dressing him up, in the tux and stuff like this. But you see, even in the makeup, you can see that he's a bit rough around the edges. You'll notice, like, he doesn't always shave completely. He's a little bit rough, and the hair is a little bit out of place. So it's always giving you these visual signals of what the character is like internally, and as well as the performance, of course, from Daniel Craig. But that vulnerability and fallibility comes through. He's not indestructible, and at any moment he could die. And then how does he become Bond? He becomes Bond by Vesper Lynd betraying him, So because at that moment, that's why he says the name's Bond, James Bond, right at the end, because Vesper Lynd has basically taken the idea of romance and a life outside of his job. She's taken that away from him. Yeah. So he has to shut off that aspect of his life, which obviously in Spectre, it comes around the other way, in that maybe there is an opening for him to leave that life.
Yeah.
So these things have become more real, and have become more part of the story with Daniel Craig's tenor, which are great. Also, Timothy Dalton, License to Kill, is just brilliant.
Yeah, I was going to say that there seems to be... I rewatched all the... just to be clear, my relationship with Bond is as follows. I obviously started watching the movies on TV. I think my first cinema Bond was For Your Eyes Only. And then from then on, I watched every Bond release on the cinema.
Same here.
Until the present day.
Yeah, from Spy Love Me, right? I've seen every one of them at the cinema.
Right.
So it's the same.
And when I was a kid, I also read all the books. I read the Pan, those classics.
Yeah.
You're just finding secondhand bookshops all over the place.
Not anymore.
Well, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's funny that they've sort of disappeared. So, and then there's a bit when I was in my sort of 20s, before GoldenEye came out, where I really sort of felt, do I even want to go? Is it something I liked as a kid? I'm not really into it anymore. It's not something, it's not something that, even from a sort of modern political point of view, I'm particularly interested in. And then I went to see GoldenEye. I thought, no, I'm still up for this. This is still enjoyable. But what I noticed is, very recently during the pandemic, during the lockdown, I rewatched the from Dr. No to Spectre. I rewatched them all, and I thought that there seems to be always this push and pull of them becoming spectacular, more spectacular, and then there's always a moment where they go, you know what, we've got to go back to the original novel, we've got to go back to the original idea of the character.
Yeah.
So even For Your Eyes Only, for instance, feels like it's a reaction to Moonraker. So, the Roger Moore Bonds, to be honest, for me, they're the ones that have absolutely not aged as well as some of the other Bonds. They feel older than the Connery Bonds for some reason. They're just they just don't work for me anymore.
Do you think it's a reaction to violence? The idea of comic book violence being perhaps and violence without repercussions.
No.
Explaining football to the friend who's just there for the nachos? Hard. Tailgating from home like a pro with snacks and drinks everyone will love? An easy win. And with Instacart helping deliver the snack time MVPs to your door, you're ready for the game in as fast as 30 minutes. So you never miss a play or lose your seat on the couch or have to go head-to-head for the last chicken wing. Shop Game Day Faves on Instacart and enjoy $0 delivery fees on your first 3 grocery orders. Offer valid for a limited time. Other fees and terms apply.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy to see if you could save when you bundle your home and auto policies. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states.
No, I don't think it's that, Paul. I think it's. I tell you what I think it is. I think it's that they don't feel to me like sincere films. They don't feel like they're actually trying to be movies. They feel much more like they're, there are so many sort of jokes in them, and there are so many, looks to camera, and it's just at a certain point, it's just like, look, if you guys aren't taking it seriously, why should I? And they seem to sort of that sense of humor and that comedy. It's not even that it's comedy. It's that the comedy itself isn't funny. It's it's like dad jokes. It's a series of dad jokes, and there's a scene that infuriates me in The Man with the Golden Gun, where they have the corkscrew car stunt. And there's a slide whistle that accompanies it, and it's just like, man, that's the best stunt in the movie, and you've played it for laughs. It seems almost disrespectful of what you've achieved.
I absolutely agree with you on that. That slide whistle on it, I think, ruined the stunt. But I think the other aspect of that is that you have to remember that they were going for that type of comedy. This is the Burt Reynolds period, Smokey and the Bandit. This is when this type of comedy, this, if you like, release, is what was, popular at the cinema and was part of Bond's IP at the time, and also part of the Roger Moore persona that he continued from The Saint and also The Persuaders. Yeah.
Right, absolutely.
So if you like, the characters of Bond aren't just influenced by the producers, but they're influenced by the actors who are playing them. So in the same way, I mentioned Doctor Who before. It's the same idea that each actor brings something that's unique to them to the role, to the character, and they develop it, in order to. So this is why Pierce Brosnan, he has these action chops, but which is reminiscent of Sean Connery, say, and Timothy Dalton. He has this serious element, but then he can go into that comedy role, which is more reminiscent of Roger Moore. So he sort of comes somewhere in between the two, and Timothy Dalton, they really wanted to get back to a more serious Bond, more associated with the novels, and closer to the novels. But they had this 6-year wait and a court case, etc. And then, and then when they came back, they decided to go with Brosnan, who had been one of the original people they wanted earlier on. And so I think really Daniel Craig they'd found the right actor at the right time for them, for the producers, for Michael G. Wilson and Barbara Broccoli, to go back to the original Bond that was in the books. They'd also got the rights back to Casino Royale, which the rights had been sold to others in the 60s, which is where we get the 1960s movie with Woody Allen, David Niven, and Orson Welles, etc.
Oh, so you weren't referring to that one as your favourite Bond then?
Funnily enough, I think. No. But why not? Why not? It's got Peter Sellers in it and Ursula Andress.
It's got Peter Sellers for like the first 25 minutes, and then he drives off the film and is never seen again.
His contract was up. What could he do? But but when they got the rights back, it gave them the perfect opportunity to go back to the, if you like, the characterization of Bond. I mean, Michael G. Wilson and Barbara Broccoli had always wanted to go back to this, to the Fleming Bond, if you like, to that character. If you like, Fiora's Only, because Michael G. Wilson was one of the co-writers on a lot of these movies as well, Richard Mabel. Fiora's Only was trying to get back to that as well as License to Kill, which I think is a really good movie, and a movie that I think Christopher Nolan must like, since he keeps stealing bits and pieces of it for his movies. But yeah, so yeah, and I think I think the Craigs have really followed that agenda. So yeah, I think there've been great moments, and there've been great stunts, and there've been great characters all the way through. Even the Roger Moore ones, there've been great moments and great stunts and lines, etc. But I think that they've cracked it with Daniel Craig.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't want to dunk too much on Roger Moore, because he was, I watched them as a kid. I have a lot of affection for them, and Spy Who Loved Me, Underwater Cars, and Moonraker, and Jaws, and all that.
Well, when you look at, they're in the for the Lotus Esprit, they're doing a high-speed chase. They don't have anything. The Lotus Esprit can go fast. So how do you film that? What you do is you get another Lotus Esprit, and you take out the back, and you put a camera in the back of it, right? And you have two Lotus Esprits going at high speed down these windy roads. I love that stuff. The fact that, and when I was doing the research and finding behind the scenes photos of these things being made and happening. Oh, and there's a helicopter in the background as well.
Of course, there's always a helicopter, of course.
Yeah, you were with Caroline Munro in it. So, there is nothing that they're all super sexy. I think that the other aspect of it is that your reaction to these things are about the age at which you first encounter them and watch them, and whether the films grow up with you or you grow with the films. So for example, I get this all the time with certain books as well, and TV series, etc. That something that you enjoyed as a child may not be appropriate for you as an adult. Absolutely. because it doesn't have something for you to hang on to and to love and enjoy and to respect, in the same way. When you're young, your relationship to violence is very blasé. When you get older and perhaps have and are thinking about death, or you find out either through family, having children, relationships with others, you did change and develop as a person. So your relationship to violence and to interpersonal dynamics, to love and relationships changes. And so some things become less acceptable to you. I remember when my son was born, my relationship to violence and what children should see as violence changed, right? And it was something that I didn't expect, but also I began to see things through his eyes as he was growing up, which was very interesting. And I saw the films again while doing the book through his eyes. So he discovered James Bond, and we watched them all in order. When did you start doing the book, Paul? What was the background to you starting on that? Well, actually, it's quite funny, because when I first did a job interview with Taschen, essentially, because I'm freelance editor, writer, etc. Benedict Taschen, I think it was around 2001. I met him, to see whether he wants me to do any work for him. And one of the things he said is, I've always wanted to do a big book on James Bond. And it wasn't until 8 years later, 2009, that he said, we should do that book on James Bond. He said he'd get in contact with the producers. A couple of months later, I get contacted by Jenny McMurray from Eon, the producers. And she said, can we meet to talk about doing a book? So sure, let's meet. And I say hello to Jenny, and I said, when did Benedict get in contact with you? We haven't heard from Benedict. Basically, Taschen and Eon had the same idea at the same time.
Oh, right, okay.
Which was great, so it made it, very, very easy to do a contract, etc., and all this sort of thing. So really it was 2009 that I was given complete access to everything. This is the first time any book or anybody had really been given access to everything. I mean, I spent a year just doing research. So there were over a million photos for, imagine all the productions, million photos, and I had to see every single one of them. All the contact sheets and the original negs and everything. It was just like to die for. And and then I got access to the warehouse where they have all the documentation, production documentation, scripts, props, costumes, everything, artwork, everything you can think of. Top secret location, somewhere outside London. Cannot reveal it.
Okay.
But it was really amazing, and that was I did all the research was with Meg Simmons, who runs the archives.
Right.
She's great. I mean, she and Jenny and everybody at Eon were just brilliant. And then I had access to all of those, and then going to America to Danjak, which is the parent company of Eon. If you like, the business end, and then getting access to all the legal documents, etc. Because I approach things as a historian, as I think I've mentioned to you before. So I like, if I can't put a date in the book unless I've seen a document with that date on it.
Right.
So I can't say that the contract was signed on so-and-so if I don't see the contract was signed on so-and-so.
Right. Or
it didn't happen then unless I see the daily production report saying that it happened then. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's my, if you like, forensic approach to the thing. And they were great. And they were, I remember I went to Denjak and stuff is in storage. So they had to pull it from storage. And I went into this room and there were just piles and piles of boxes full of documents, for me to pour through. And that was great. And even among that, I found a copy of one of Ian Fleming's TV scripts that he had done before the film series.
Right.
He had tried to work. He'd put together various TV scenarios for a Bond TV series. He'd written like small things.
Yeah.
So I saw copies. So it was like it was great. Just to see all this.
But you also include sort of non-Eon productions as well. I mean, you include Casino Royale and you include Never Say Never Again.
Yeah, because I also got to see all of MGM archives.
Right.
And MGM, and now they bought United Artists, and Bond was originally United Artists. So what happened was, because over the years, all these things have become conglomerated. Yeah, they've joined. Right. So in fact, the rights for Never Say Never and Casino Royale all fall under the same umbrella now. So I could include them all, and there was no problem with me doing that. In fact, for the 1960s Casino Royale, I mean, just to give you an idea, I went to New York and I met with Sam Shaw's family. He's a great special photographer. Sam and his son Larry Shaw had been on set taking photographs of the original Casino Royale. So I got to spend the day with the family. They were lovely. They took me out to the house and we were eating and they were showing me all this stuff. It was lovely. And then when I got back, I found out that Joseph Karoff was only lived 3 blocks from where I was staying, from the hotel I was staying in. And Joseph Karoff was the guy who, do you know the 007 logo?
Yes.
Where the 7 becomes the gun?
Yeah, yeah.
He designed that.
Oh, wow.
For the poster, right? For the American poster, I think, and for one of the posters. And he was only living 3 blocks from where. So I just rang him up one morning and he says, yeah, come along. So I spent a couple of hours with him. And he was telling me like little stories about how he did it, and stuff like that. Yeah, it's just little things that all just pop up and you never know. So this is what happens when you do these things, that you never know what's going to happen or what's going to pop up. And you have all these little memories of the making of the book that that go with it. And that was in addition to the making of, it's the same as making of the movies. You know, that you find that a lot of the people who work on the movies, their relationship to the movie is not about the final movie that you and I see at the cinema. The relationship to it is the making of it, and the contacts and the relationships that they made. And as I was doing all this research, I found that, you know, not only have you got the family connection in terms of the producers, you've got Cubby Broccoli, and then his stepson, Michael G. Wilson, who comes into it, who was actually an extra in Goldfinger. And he was telling me that story as well. And then became a writer on it with Richard Maybaum. He and then a producer. He worked his way up. You know, he learned the job of producer by doing different elements. And then Barbara doing likewise. She's working with on the second unit, for instance, on License to Kill. You know, all the trucks and everything, all that. She was handling a lot of that in Mexico, and she worked her way up. So it's a family business. Now, Greg Wilson, Michael's son, over the past few movies, he's been learning how to produce the movies and getting more and more responsibility as he goes through, as he learns more. And that family element, I realized, was reflected within the crews, because a lot of them work in Pinewood, and you would get the Lamont family, you know, the Corbold family, you know, or the Udell family, and other families all working through multiple movies.
Intergenerational sort of.
Yeah. So it becomes about family. Ultimately, that's what and that's really when I thought, you know, the plurality of voices, you know, of all these people, of all these families that worked on the movies was really what made the movies, because it is about this group of people banding together like a circus, a moving circus, having to deal with the travail of work, you know, of the different weather conditions, of things breaking and going wrong. But still, at the end of the day, the show must go on. They must, whatever happens, you know, in their life or business or personal situations, they will finish the movie. And I thought that was the admirable thing about the movies that I wanted to show in the book, and to show it through the plurality of voices, which is why it's an oral history with, you know, over 150 different voices. And that was, you know, that was my, you know, I didn't know that going into the book, but that's where it became, you know, once I understood what the situation was and what Bond is all about. Because ultimately, even though Bond is a lone wolf, he has M and Moneypenny and Q, you know, and Felix Leiter. He has this group, this family, this working family around him in order to help him achieve everything he does. So even though he puts himself, his life on the line, you know, for Queen and Country, he has these others who understand what he's doing, and that he is a true and honourable person, and they help him achieve those ends, even if they're not always totally by the book. The first edition of the book came out in 2012 for Skyfall, so I was on set and did interviews for Skyfall, and what you find out is that, and likewise for Spectre, and likewise for No Time to Die. I was just looking last night, and I got some figures here. I started on this latest edition in March 2019 with the script as it was at that point, and I did over a half dozen visits to Pinewood. I did 17 interviews, over 18 hours of tape, you know, electronic media, I should say. But I've got to cut that down to 7,500 words, and that includes text, captions, and quotes on 24 pages. And I finished in May 2020. So the thing is that I had some fantastic talks with, you know, Peter Tilsley and, you know, Chris Corbold and Alex Witt and all, you know, lots of great people on the Linus Sandgren and Carrie Fukunaga and Barbara, Michael, and Greg, and it was great, talking to them all. But if you like, the conversational aspect of it, the little asides, the jokes, etc., I had to cut out, because I just didn't have the space I just didn't have the physical space in the book in order to include all those, which is funny because it's the same with the movie as well, in that you see in the script development that there are certain like little asides and little bits and beats, etc., in the scripts. And as the films are being made and developed, you see these fall by the wayside.
Right.
It really is sheared off in order to keep the story and momentum going. It's just an interesting process.
We're going to have to close in a moment as well, but sure. I really wanted to have a final get your final take on the Craig era as it comes to an end. Because I agree with you. I think, excuse me, when Craig turns up, the quality of the films just seems to rocket in every department. And I feel that the decision they made to basically turn it into a saga, which is a complete departure for Bond. There were always little callbacks and little references throughout all of the films, but there was never a sense that Quantum of Solace begins right after Casino Royale ends, and that was really new. So how do you look at that his tenure now it's come to an end?
I should say I talked to Daniel as well, and I asked him like this exact question about the saga, and he said that it really developed by accident over the making of the movies. So, in other words, that each time they made the movie, they were looking at the character aspect of Bond and what the character would do next, sort of more by accident than design. So, if you like, more as a natural part of the process of writing and developing and making the movies, they've made the saga. So there was never an idea, oh, we'll start here and we'll end there. Well, actually, they knew exactly how they wanted to end it. They didn't know, as you'll find out tonight, John. They knew exactly how they wanted to end it, but they didn't know which movie they were going to end it on.
Right, I see.
So this was so that was an accident, but an accident that was a natural part of the process of making this character. And I think that what they've done is that they've taken the vulnerability and the fallibility and the psychological effect of being a killer, somebody with a license to kill, which was in the Fleming novels. And you can see the character of Bond disassembling. We would probably call it a post-traumatic stress disorder now. And I think that Fleming had that, and they've used that, and I think they've created the defining Bond. At the end, they do say, at the very end of the movie of No Time to Die, they do say, James Bond will return, which is, fantastic. But I think that what Craig and the producers and the writers and the directors have done is they've turned Bond into a human being, and they've turned him into a character who will live not just as a wish fulfillment character, but with a character with depth. And I applaud them. I think they've done a magnificent job.
So do you think the follow-up, when they go, they've already said they're not going to even talk about casting until 2022 anyway.
Sure.
And that seems respectful as well of Craig to give him a moment of,
I'm sure they have lots of ideas.
Yeah.
All right. To give you an example, there are some in the scripts. There are always ideas. So in development scripts, there are always ideas that are chopped, but if they're good ideas, they end up later on in another movie. And I remember when we were doing Spectre, I had this whole section on some of the earlier drafts, and it was cut out, right, of the chapter, and I went, darn, or something stronger, but that this happens, but for this version of the book, they're put back in because they used some of the ideas or developments of those ideas in the new movie, so that's why they cut it in the first place,
Yeah.
But so, and I think that they always have ideas, and it's just a matter of where that idea will lead them in the future.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if they're going to continue. There's going to be a sense of continuation, or if it's going to be like, okay, we'll hermetically seal this, and we'll like a Batman film. We'll just totally. This is a totally different thing.
Yeah, or Doctor Who. In a sense, I know they have continuity within Doctor Who, but or Star Trek. Look at what happened with Star Trek, or Mission Impossible, even from the TV series to the films.
Yeah.
There is. We live in a world where it's at the end of the day, it's just entertainment, and it's about how we want to be entertained. Do we want to be entertained with something that's serious or comedic? Do we want to be entertained with something that's that's mysterious? That makes us think, or it's we are full of different emotions, and we can be entertained in many different ways. And I think that the Bond movies, with the different Bond leading actors, all entertain in a slightly different way, and I think that's great. And I'm sure that whatever the future holds, it will be entertaining, because these producers know how to entertain a worldwide audience. And will just be entertained in a different way by a new actor with his own personality and his own things to bring to the character.
Oh, well, I'm really looking forward to it tonight, and I'm looking forward to reading the new version of the James Bond archives, which will be out when, Paul?
October 12th. It's full of spoilers, etc., as well as images that have not been released as we speak. Yeah, with a lot of exclusive material, and as I say, tons of interviews that I've done that I've included in the book, exclusive to the James Bond archives.
Brilliant. I will be getting my copy, definitely. Thank you so much for joining me again, Paul. And this is going to go out as a special bonus episode as well. So I will look forward to speaking to you at some point in the future about whatever your next project is.
I look forward to it, John.
Thanks a lot, Paul. And
you didn't even ask for my book.
The recommended book, yeah, but I was good. This is why I was doing this as an extra. And did you have another recommended book?
For James Bond, yes, I do.
Oh, okay. Well, give me your recommended book for James Bond then.
Well, my recommended book for James Bond is When the Snow Melts by Cubby Broccoli and Donald Zegg.
Right.
Have you come across it?
No, I haven't read it. I don't even know about this. Tell me more.
Well, this is basically Cubby Broccoli's autobiography. That he completed just before he passed away. And it's basically, he was interviewed by Donald Zegg, who was this great newspaper man who died recently, actually, lived to a ripe old age, great character. And yeah, they came up with this autobiography, When the Snow Melts, and it tells his story of as the Broccolis coming from Italy, right, where they grew broccoli and brought it to America, and that was the family business, and then found a job in Hollywood, as an agent, and the people he met in Hollywood, etc. And then his life in the film business, and then going on to Bond and telling stories about that. It is really a really, really great old-fashioned biography with lots of name dropping, lots of amusing stories. It's a raconteur's dream. It really is great. It's personal. It's got feeling to it. The thing is that when you read a lot of stuff about Bond, it's all very technical. And what I love about this is that the feeling of humanity in it, right, in this book. And it was like when I meet, Michael G. Wilson, Barbara Broccoli, I get that feeling of humanity in it. And I understand why they're so emotional about the series and about the character. And that really comes through. And Barbara, talks about her father as well when I interviewed her last for No Time to Die. So these stories are still alive. And I think that this aspect of humanity that comes through in this book inform the series and give you the reason why this series is so successful, even though it can seem blasé and technical and mechanical because people are so interested in how films are made. But I love this human element to it. And that's really why I recommend the book.
Excellent. So that's called When the Snow Melts?
That's correct. And it should be easy to find.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Paul. Really appreciate it. And yeah, I am looking forward to reading the new version once I've seen the movie.
Okay, that's great. So, all the best to you, John.
So that was my conversation with Paul Duncan. That was a special bonus episode. I also wanted to talk just very quickly about my own reaction to No Time to Die, which I managed to see last night. So just after I had the conversation with Paul, basically. This is going to be spoilery, so I've put it at the end so that you can cut it out if you don't want to have anything spoiled. I'm assuming you've already watched it. I thought that the film was a little bit too long. I thought that it wasn't the best in the series. I think Casino Royale, Skyfall, and Quantum of Solace, probably in that order, are my top three. I did think it was better than Spectre, although I don't think Spectre is as absolutely dreadful as many people say. And as I sort of originally thought, I've rewatched it and it's much better. I think the film really works in the context of the whole saga. I thought the ending, the death of Bond specifically, was a genuinely visceral shock, even though it was something that I had predicted for a long time would happen. So I wasn't surprised, but I was still shocked by that moment, and in particular the manner of his death, the way the metaphor sort of becomes a literal reality. Everyone I touch dies, and so I'm going to decide to sacrifice myself instead of going on in a blasé manner and wreaking destruction everywhere I go. So I thought that was a really good closing of the circle. And it was also interesting that he dies via essentially friendly fire, technology blasting him out of existence, and it felt a sort of fitting way to go. And yet it's a sort of kind of there was a genuine tragedy to it. So I was really pleased with that. Pleased with it. Obviously, I was really I was moved by it. I thought it was touching. I thought it succeeded in what it did, and it sort of retrospectively made the whole film much better than I had initially been thinking. I also thought I was interested to hear Paul talk about how each action set piece or each had a different mood and tone, because I thought that was very true. I thought it wasn't as actiony as Bond usually is, and I thought the set pieces were really atmospheric rather than just balls to the wall action stuff. This wasn't going to be Fast and Furious 9. There was a real, I loved the bit in the wood, for instance, with the mist and everything. I liked the Italian opening, which a student of mine recently said that they had actually gone down and watched them film it by sheer chance. They were filming it, and she was very surprised by how slow the cars were going through the town, that they filmed it going through very slowly, much slower than it seems to be on screen. But and then the movie magic steps in, I assume. I really loved Daniel Craig's performance, and I think overall his tenure as Bond has been absolutely superb. I'm really impressed by what he's done and what he's managed to achieve. It's a genuine achievement, and I think when all is said and done, there'll be a real sense that Daniel Craig has, and obviously the filmmakers who have all been responsible around his period, have really elevated Bond and taken him somewhere that, you know, as good as Timothy Dalton or Pierce Brosnan were, there was still a sense that there was a half-heartedness about their reinvention of Bond. So it was really good to see that. I'm really, I think ultimately I was really satisfied, and I'm really looking forward to doing too many really. Sorry about that, but I am looking forward to sort of marathoning, you know, from Casino Royale to No Time to Die, sort of one long weekend. You know, maybe at Christmas. I'm not sure when the Blu-ray will be out, but to watch them all one after the other, I think would give a real sense of what this achievement actually means. It's kind of Harry Pottered, isn't it? Really, I think that was the model. I'm not sure if it was conscious or unconscious, but they've sort of created a Harry Potter through line of someone who's an apprentice at the beginning, and by the end has become, you know, the tired old geezer ready to lay down his arms, and in this case his life. Yeah. Well, I'll be interested to hear what any of you guys thought of it. If you wish, please, you can contact me via Twitter. My handle is at Dr. Jonty, DRJONTY. And if you like the podcast, please remember to tune in, like, subscribe, spread the word, wave banners at football matches, hire airplanes, and skywrite the hyperlink across the sky for anybody to click. Okay, thank you very much. Talk to you soon, and take care.
As the days get shorter and the nights chillier, it's tough to keep up your fall workout routine. Thankfully, there's Alo Moves, the app that brings workouts and wellness to the comfort of your home. Join alomoves.com with code ACAST for a 30-day free trial and 20% off an annual membership. From yoga and Pilates to sound baths and meditations, Alo Moves has it all, with classes made to fit every schedule. Find your perfect wellness routine anytime and anywhere with code ACAST at alomoves.com.
If there's one thing that my family and friends know me for, it's being an amazing gift giver. I owe it all to Celebrations Passport from 1-800-Flowers.com, my one-stop shopping site that has amazing gifts for every occasion. With Celebrations Passport, I get free shipping on thousands of amazing gifts. And the more gifts I give, the more perks and rewards I earn. To learn more and take your gift giving to the next level, visit 1-800-Flowers.com/ACAST. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/ACAST.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.